Hello and welcome to the Tower of London for today's Thought for the Day. I want to think today with you about the Garimar, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Gospels. I was very grateful to a member of the congregation who slipped an envelope into my hand after the service on Sunday. A little later in the day when I opened the envelope, I discovered that it was in fact about the Garimar Gospels. Here's a picture of them. And they're very seriously under threat. Exactly 2 years ago this month, May 2019, I had the great privilege of going and spending some time in Ethiopia. I went there for 3 reasons. The first was to visit the churches at Lalibela. These rock churches, hewn out some 500-600 years ago, have become the World Heritage Site and a place of enormous pilgrimage for Ethiopian Orthodox Christians. The second part of my trip, and the principal part of it, was to spend some considerable time high up in the Simeon Mountains, living alongside many of the poorest people in the world. This was where Band-Aid started all those years ago, feeling where starvation and hunger had become so endemic that there was a threat that thousands of people would die. I wanted to see how things had progressed since those days. And the third part of my trip was to go and spend nearly 2 weeks up in the Tigray region on the Eritrean border, walking in the mountains there, but also visiting some of the great sites such as Axum, Gondar and Mekele. Now that part of the world, the Tigray part of Ethiopia, is historically one of the oldest kingdoms in the world. Much older than the Roman kingdom and even older than the Egyptian kingdom, their neighbours not so very far away. The Aksumite kingdom and their wealth and power was phenomenal. It was from there, of course, that we get in the Old Testament the story of the Queen of Sheba, leaving Axum with all her gold and silver and wood. You remember the cedar wood and elephants and everything that she took with her to go and visit the king in the Holy Land. So I went there and spent a little bit of time in the Tigray region. Now, sadly, in the last 6 months, there has been considerable fighting in that region between Ethiopian forces, Eritrean forces, and this has made for thousands of people to be displaced, for hunger and starvation to be everywhere, and for the place to have fallen into a most terrible and perilous state. And people, even today's Daily Telegraph, as I record this for you, today's Daily Telegraph has an article on the bombing that's going on in Mekele, where I flew out of to go back to Addis Ababa at the end of my trip in that region. This article, though, given to me about the Garimar Gospels, is a very profound and worrying story. The Garimar Gospels are 2 ancient Gospels written on goat skin and dated to be around 390 to 500 AD. That makes them the oldest Gospels of their type in the world. And they are so unique and very special. They're real Ethiopian treasures. They're like the Lindisfarne Gospels are to us. So important to the people of Ethiopia. And they're looked after in a small monastic community, a small Morris monastery at a place called Garimar. Just a few kilometres from that monastery is not so well known, even though these Gospels are there. But just 6 or 7 kilometres away is a well-known monastery, the monastery of Debradoa. This is the one that's a volcanic plug. There's a great volcanic plug in the desert, and on top of it is a 6th century monastery. The only way to access the monastery is to climb a small way up the volcanic plug and then climb in a basket and get hauled up to the top and hope they don't let go. That's also how they get their daily or their weekly provisions, as it is. At the end of your trip, you're then lowered down precariously off the edge of this cliff edge right down to the bottom. But the Garimari Gospels are under threat. The fighting that's going on there puts these and other artifacts in a perilous position. Many monks and priests have also been killed in the fighting. And it's true to say, as this article points out, that many of the monks and nuns would lay down their lives to protect these Gospels. Over the centuries, they've been hidden in caves to try and protect them. And everybody will do everything they can at the moment to try and protect these Gospels and the other artifacts and treasures which this ancient kingdom, this ancient civilization has preserved for centuries. The fear is that they will be stolen. The fear is that they'll be looted and then sold on the black market or in some kind of public auction. Well, what can we do? First, we can pray for these religious communities as we pray for the people of the Tigray region as well and for an end to the war there. Practically, we could write to the Ethiopian embassy and express our concern for the people of the region and the Garimar Gospels. We could write to the Foreign Office and express the same concern and ask them, in a much more authoritative position than us, to also express their concern. Thank you for letting me bring this to your attention. It's something for us all to think about.